This podcast is made possible by the generous support of the American people through the United States Agency for International Development. The content of this podcast are the sole responsibility of its creators and does not necessarily reflect the views of USAID or the United States government.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another WABiLED podcast series. My name is Andalucia, the cross-cutting service assistant at WABiLED. Today's podcast is going to look at women in combating wildlife crime in West Africa. So, wildlife trafficking poses a severe threat to biodiversity in West Africa, undermining ecosystem stability, economic development, and national security. We have women who play vital roles in wildlife conservation and anti-trafficking efforts, yet their contributions often go unrecognized. We are here today to highlight the experiences of our two wonderful ladies here. I'll allow them to introduce themselves shortly. They are going to shed light on the challenges and achievements of women in this sector and inspire others to promote gender inclusion in wildlife conservation efforts. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you for having me, Susan. My name is Tessie Moge. I'm from Nigeria. I work with the Federal Ministry of Environment in the Wildlife and CITES division. I work as the focal person for monitoring illegal killing of elephants, and I'm also the focal person for Wildlife Enforcement Task Force. Thank you.
Hi, Susan. I'm Bridget from Ghana. I also work with the Forestry Commission of Ghana, the Wildlife Division, and I'm stationed at the airport as a wildlife officer.
Okay, thank you, Tessie and Bridget. I'm quite interested to see how this conversation flows. See, Bridget is an alumna of the CITES Master's Program at the University of Andalucia, and Tessie is a current student. USAID has supported numerous West African cohorts since our predecessor program, West Africa Biodiversity and Climate Change WABiC, through full grants and scholarships to attend the program. Under WABiC and WABiLED alone, over 40 students from across West Africa have obtained their master's degree in the unique Management of Species in Trade program. The most recent cohort is Tessie's cohort, who just completed their in-person classes on campus in Baeza, Spain, and are just embarking on their thesis fieldwork in their respective countries. To quickly get into today's series, we just want to have some conversations here. Now, I just want to find out, Tessie first, how did you become involved in combating wildlife crime? And what inspired you to pursue this career path?
Thank you, Susan. Like I always say, I didn't choose a career in wildlife conservation. The career path chose me when I was offered to study zoology in the university. And as time progressed, I became interested in what I was doing. I had my IT at a veterinary hospital, which was a very big one. And I saw a lot of cases, and my passion for animals began to grow from there. And then, fast forward to when I got to jail, I was posted to the Wildlife Division, which was in charge of wildlife conservation and all of the activities around wildlife. I had passionate leaders, a woman who was very passionate about wildlife conservation. So I had a woman to work with, someone to look up to, and then that was it. That was how it kicked off, and then I'm here now.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. Now, Bridget.
My journey as a wildlife conservationist started in 2017. I was posted to the Forestry Commission as a national service personnel.
Okay.
And at the time, my current boss had written several letters from the KIA unit to the head office requesting for more staff capacity. So fast forward, I was posted to work at the KIA unit together with another lady. And with no background in natural resources or wildlife conservation, I went through a series of on-the-job training, both formal and informal. Then in 2022, I was nominated by the division to participate in the CITES Master's course, and that began my journey into wildlife conservation. So after the course, I also got the opportunity to participate in the CITES COP19, also in 2022. And these two remarkable experiences heightened my interest in wildlife conservation, because from these two experiences, I understood the need for biodiversity conservation and also the need to conserve wild animals. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Bridget and Tessie. Now, quickly, I just want you to highlight or share some key achievements you have made in wildlife protection.
Thank you, Susan. For me, I have been working with the Wildlife Division for close to 10 years now. And basically, my job has to do with a lot of policy making. So I have been involved in developing a lot of documents that have been implemented to foster the work of wildlife conservation. I've also done a lot of trainings for wildlife enforcement agencies. Of recent, after we had one of the trainings, it was like we turned on a light in a dark room because some of the officers who were at the borders knew nothing about wildlife conservation. And then by the next day, I had people sending pictures. Tessie, we saw this at the border. We have confiscated it. Is it part of CITES? So all of those things were very remarkable for me. And then I've also had to go to the protected areas to talk to the rangers and then know how they are faring, encourage them on why they need to keep up the work they do in wildlife conservation. So I've done a lot of advocacy and I've seen results. Okay. Thank you.
Myself, I have done about 4 confiscations at my post, and that is like my daily job task. Identifies illegal wildlife specimens that are brought to the airport for export or import, and then do what is needful. Apart from that, I've also had the opportunity to engage some community members like the bushmeat traders, hunters, and educating them on the need or the importance of wildlife conservation and how they are also important in the value chain of protecting our wild resources. And I've also had the opportunity to train new staff who were posted to the unit. There are about 3. Every quarter, I give them on-the-job training. And then at my unit, we also have a quarterly awareness creation campaign for all the stakeholders at the airport. So every quarter, I also get the opportunity to train or educate stakeholders on the need for wildlife conservation.
These achievements are all impressive. Looking at the fact that you are all youth, right? Under 35.
Yes.
You are all young women.
Yeah.
And you are already achieving all these key things. Okay, so as a young woman, emphasis on the young, what unique perspectives do you think or do you see that you've brought or you bring on this field?
Well, my background is actually in psychology, so I was more interested in the behavioral science of people when it comes to conservation, the psychology of how people see wildlife, what their perspectives are when it comes to conservation. Because I remember there was one time I had an engagement with one enforcement officer, and he was like, he's more in chemicals and explosives are more relevant than animals. So in his line of duty, he wouldn't look forward to seizing or confiscating anything relating to wildlife. So then it made me understand that, okay, there is more to it than just telling people to help us conserve. So I just want to understand or get people to understand and appreciate the need for wildlife conservation. Also see the threats wildlife trafficking has on our survival as human beings. Yeah. So
well, for me, I bring in a lot of energy, maybe because I'm still a youth, like you said. So I bring in a lot of energy, for wildlife to work, we need a lot of collaboration. And then the older people at some point want to claim their rights. So the energy is a bit low. They feel like you have to come to my office, you have to follow the protocols, you have to, but as a young person, I just go out there and then somehow I get the job done. So I'm a good team player. So it enables me collaborate well with all of the relevant agencies that need to be in play for this to be done. Thank you.
Okay. Those are certainly unique perspectives, the psychology background, and also the energy, the youthful energy. That's what we need. So coming back again, I mentioned that these two ladies we have here are recipients of the CITES Master Scholarship, which is funded by USAID, WABiLED. And so I just want to find out, maybe Tessie, you are still in school, you are still doing the master's course, but for Bridget, you are done with it. But so I want to ask you, how has the CITES master's course impacted your career and effectiveness in combating wildlife trafficking? We can look at it's from a practical side and then a technical perspective as well. And yeah.
I will allow my senior go first.
Well, like I said earlier, it actually set the tone for me to pursue a career in wildlife conservation. So that was the stepping stone for me. The CITES master's course was a stepping stone for me. And also the course really broadened my perspective on wildlife conservation and international trading wild animals. So during the course, I remember during our face-to-face period in Spain, I really gained an appreciable knowledge in species identification because on a daily basis, I see thousands of species through the airport, and it's crucial for me to identify each of them, to know that, okay, this is a royal python, or this is a mamba, or this is that. So at that level, I really appreciated that. And then even with not live animals alone, but the product, how would I know that maybe this is an ivory, maybe which has been produced into a bangle, a bracelet, or an earring, or a pendant, something. So the face-to-face period really gave me that skill to be able to identify species and also to be able to identify the authenticity of a document, the CITES permit. Yes, that's what I would say.
Okay. Tessie.
Okay, I like to say that before I say the impact, in my office, we usually fill Apple forms when you're about to write promotion exams. And then you have a space for training needs. For me, back to back, I always filled CITES Masters. It has been my dream. I had always filled CITES Masters. I had the option of maybe getting sponsorship from CITES, from US Fish and Wildlife Service, or WABiLED. So getting this opportunity was like a dream come true for me, because it's something I had always filled in my Apple form, and I knew of course my organization were not going to be able to sponsor me in that. And then having to go for the physical class, it helps me understand my job better, because I've been in this job 9 years plus before going for the course proper. So imagine you've been doing a job like blindly, by assumptions, by mentoring, without being really schooled. So while I was there, it made me understand what I had been doing. It made me understand, the permits you've been given. It made me see the errors and all of the things that needed to be done properly. So basically, I'm going to just talk about the physical classes for now until when I'm done with the thesis. Thank you.
I hope with your energy, you will be able to see the impacts more effectively. Okay, so Bridget, have you been in contact with any of your cohorts? And how has
we are still in contact?
Okay.
I mean, those in the neighboring countries, Nigeria, Benin, Cote d'Ivoire, they mostly come to Ghana, and then we meet and have chats. And also we have online platforms like the WhatsApp. And I remember in July, I encountered an issue where an exporter wanted the management authority to issue a permit, but then wanted the scientific name of the species changed from what is known worldwide, claiming that Saudi Arabia has a different scientific name for the particular species. I quickly texted my classmates, and I was overwhelmed. It was just the blink of an eye. In seconds, answers came tripping. And I was glad that I kept that network. Yeah, so we are still in contact every day.
That's great to hear. How can your master's, you are pursuing the master's course, you come out with the thesis. Now, how would this propel your work on a national level? Be it through either developing a strategy or supporting the implementation of a strategy, or whatever way it is. how do you think your master's degree can propel your work on a national level?
Okay, like I said earlier, that I'm the focal person for wildlife enforcement task force. And my thesis, I'm going to be working on harmonization of wildlife seizures in Nigeria. This is basically to support the wildlife law enforcement. So I'm trying to come up with a document that will be implemented. And this is from the master's course. And then I know I had met some people from the law enforcement recently while I came back, and they're like, Tessie, oh, you went for the master's course. Now we're trying to organize a program. I hope you're coming to train us. So it gives me an edge now. Everyone believes I'm an expert in CITES because I have gone for this master's course. So I know it's going to help even in policy makings, in decision makings, and then implementations of some of the strategies that we already have.
Bridget, how has you were already done with your course? How has it propelled your work on a national level? Can you just share some?
Yeah, well, in my thesis, I made a recommendation that the management authority should establish focal persons in the relevant agencies and give them the responsibility of coordinating CITES enforcement matters. So that was with regards to the relevant people who had received CITES trainings, either one way or the other. And this has led to the creation of the Wildlife Enforcement Task Force, which is a national task force responsible to improve coordination and collaboration among the stakeholders. Well, for me, my ultimate goal is to be an environmental policy expert, because I feel like we need to ensure that environmental sustainability education, even wildlife conservation education, it makes a difference. Okay. We need to understand that we need to tailor these trainings or awareness campaigns to the specific needs of the people, the community, rural area residents, and to achieve the goal that we seek to achieve. Okay. The aim is to combat wildlife trafficking and also to have sustainable use of wildlife resources and leave some for future generations to come. Yeah.
Thank you. So as young people, and especially as young women, what challenges have you faced in this sector of wildlife conservation? And if you have had any challenges, how have you overcome them?
Okay. As a young woman, wildlife conservation is mostly dominated by men, and it's obvious because the work, it's something that requires a lot of energy, and then if you have to be in the field, it's something that it's demanding. For me, I'm a mother, and then you don't expect me to always leave my family, and then even if you're not in the field, if you're into the policy making and advocacy like I do, you have to do a lot of travels. It's quite challenging. I just came back from Spain and I picked my bag. My last baby wasn't going to talk to me when I was leaving the house because she felt like, where are you going to again? So it involves a lot of travels, a lot of meetings. And so it's one of the challenges that women face, but we can't actually run away from the job. We have to be there and then look for a way to strike a balance. And so for me, most times when I have done a lot of work that way, I just blank out. And then I tell my boss, I need some time to be with my family. And then I try to get that time. And then whenever I'm in town, I try to make sure I close early and go for school runs myself. And then I have them around me. And then we should also look for support from the male counterparts. They've got a lot of energy and support to give to us too. Yeah, they should be able to support us. Like for me, I get to work very closely with a male colleague. So when the work is overwhelming, I try to send in some work to him and then he gets to do it. So wildlife conservation has a lot of demands. And then you have to be in the field. Sometimes I remember when I had to travel to one of the north areas. In fact, there was insurgents, there was kidnappings. There was kidnapping in the site where I was going to. The kidnappers had just shot one of the rangers, who is a man. And then here I am, a woman. I was going there for some advocacy. It comes with all of these challenges, but you have to be really determined if you want to be a woman and work in wildlife conservation. Thank you.
My number one challenge is getting people to understand, especially the people I work with, the stakeholders at the airport, getting them to appreciate and understand the value of wildlife conservation and the threat of wildlife trafficking. In Ghana, it's a low priority area. And so even when it comes to my own sector, the Forestry Commission, budget allocations are always low when it comes to wildlife conservation issues. And so that has always been number one challenge for me. And like Tessie said, safety concerns. I work at the airport. We run 2 shifts, morning and evening. So the evening, sometimes you close around 12 a.m. or 1 a.m. and you have to either sleep at the office or go back to your home. And it's always scary. And if you have to go to the field, I haven't been trained in arms. So I don't know how to, protect myself against maybe any attack from poachers or even the animals. So our safety is always at risk. But then, we say we are powerful women, so we'll continue with it. Yeah. And then there's mostly political interference with our job. I remember I made a confiscation sometime, and then I really hoped that, the perpetrator was going to be prosecuted. But then it got to a certain level and then he was freed. So that is another challenge when it comes to wildlife conservation here.
Okay. Now, looking at all these challenges we have stated, let me put it this way. How can we encourage inclusivity in wildlife conservation and anti-trafficking efforts? Tess, you mentioned a lot of things you go through as a woman and as a young mother. And Bridget, you also mentioned some things you go through as a young person as well. So looking at all these, how can we encourage inclusivity in wildlife conservation?
One of the things that WABiLED is already doing with the master's course, I remember when the letter had come in for nominations, they had specifically written that female nominations were recommended and strongly encouraged. You see, that's a way of inclusiveness, because if you had left it open-ended, maybe it won't be a woman, even though I had pushed in so much that I was sure I was coming this year. But if you had left it open-ended, it would have been maybe a man, because we have more men in wildlife conservation. So that's one of the things that can be done. And then women should also be encouraged in every way possible. I know of people who, when their children are giving courses like zoology, environmental biology, conservation, be like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And then, so I think they should be encouraged. Those of us who are already into wildlife conservation can pick up young ones and try to mentor them and give them reasons why you feel they can thrive in this sector. Thank you.
Well, I'll just add that the kind of, how do I put it, the institutional support, it should go further into policy development. So then it's not just maybe WABiLED saying female nominations are required, but then it's a policy in an institution that female-male ratio when it comes to any scholarship or any kind of opportunity or leadership roles, it's fair. That's what I'll add to it.
Okay. Thank you for all this.
I was going to add that while we were establishing the Wildlife Enforcement Task Force in Nigeria, we had to spell it out in our TOR that women have to be involved. And that's why we have women in our task force. Okay. I know otherwise, naturally, because even with that, we had a lot of debates. People were like, so if you tell a woman to wake up and travel, we should do this, a lot of debates back. But because it was in the TOR, they had nothing to do. And then we had to get women there.
Finally, to conclude, what advice would you give young professionals interested in pursuing a career in combating wildlife crime, but maybe there are some setbacks that are preventing them from pursuing this?
I would like to say just pursue your dreams. Your dreams are very valid and they can be achieved. And then come out of your comfort zone. Wildlife conservation it's not a comfortable thing. It's not something, I know women, we like to be girly. You want to walk where you wear your heels, you wear your ribbons, you look very tushed. In conservation, it's not always that way. You have to be ready for whatever it's coming your way. So it's something we can do. Just brace up. Know that you can do it. Your dreams are valid. And then also remember that we have these plants and animals to conserve for the future. Somebody has to do it. And, women are more passionate. When women come out to do wildlife conservation, I think we are going to achieve more. So let's have more women come into this field, and then I'm sure biodiversity will be preserved. Thank you.
Thank you too.
I would say that should gain practical knowledge, volunteer with NGOs or field work, gain practical knowledge, because wildlife conservation is on the field, is not in the offices. Advocacy roles are there, but then the major work is on the field. And so get field work experience. And then also pursue scholarship opportunities, grants like WABiLED is doing, and learn more. Because, it's not just about seeing trees around and you think you know all about conservation, or just not. Maybe cutting down trees is what you are doing to conserve, but then you need to learn more about conservation and then seek mentorship and networking opportunities. That's all I can say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bridget and Tessie. It's been a great conversation. Now, this podcast serves not only to recognize the achievements of young women in combating wildlife crime, but to also advocate for greater inclusion and support for this category of people in conservation. And in doing so, we aim to strengthen the overall efforts to protect West Africa's rich biodiversity and contribute to the sustainable development of the region. Thank you once again for coming, Tessie and Bridget. And WABiLED is a 4-year program funded by USAID, which has objectives encompassing biodiversity conservation and low emissions development in West Africa. My name is Andalucia, the cross-cutting service assistant at WABiLED, also a young person, and I've been your host for today. Thank you.
This podcast is made possible by the generous support of the American people through the United States Agency for International Development. The content of this podcast are the sole responsibility of its creators and does not necessarily reflect the views of USAID or the United States government.